is 6 p.m. on this, the 11th day of May 2023, and I call this special call meeting of the United Independent School District Board of Trustees to order. May I have the trustees that are present, please recite their name for the record.
Gilbert Aguilar, present.
Ricardo Rick Rodriguez, present.
Michelle Molina, present.
Alicia Olivera, present.
Javier Montemayor, present.
And myself, Ramiro Vélez III, present. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Agenda item 2 is going to be Pledge of Allegiance and Texas Pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee. Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, public comments. Do we have anybody signed up for public
We have
comments?
none today, sir.
All right, so at this time, I'm going to make a motion to move up agenda item 5, which is going to be 5A, which is going to be
Second.
discussion and possible action to approve employment contracts and addendums for professional employees for 2023-2024. So I have a motion by myself and a second by Ms. Olivero. Is there any discussion?
No, sir.
All right, so all those in favor to move 5A up?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Motion passes. Mr. Canales?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Vélez, members of the board and the audience. I'm here to request your approval for renewal of the employment contracts and addendums for professional employees for the 23-24 school year. This is what we do every year to make sure that we have our folks approved and we send them out.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unopposed, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, so back to agenda item 4, informational items. 4A is budget, 2023-2024 update.
Good evening, members of the board. Mr. Gonzalez allowed me to present tonight since I wasn't here on Tuesday night. And it's a brief budget update. And as you can see, our budget is going to be based on what happens at the Senate and the House. These bills, we've been tracking them. And they're where our money's going to come from. They're going to tell us what to do with property taxes. What do we do about teacher raises? So just to give you an update, some of these bills are not moving forward, which is kind of perplexing and very concerning on our part. House Bill 100, up until a week ago, was moving forward, had some money for us. We kind of knew how to calculate it. They talked about more money in basic allotment, meaning we get more money per kid, per student. There is not a Senate companion to that. And so that one might die by midnight, I think, tomorrow. And if it does, that doesn't mean it dies completely. They might put an amendment, let's say, to a bill that is alive. So we're just tracking it and just trying to make sure we understand what's coming our way. Another big bill that is headlines everywhere is probably Senate Bill 8, which is the green one on the Senate side. This is the education savings accounts. Now, there's a lot of wheeling and dealing negotiations. They've even talked about paring back on assessments and trying to get some of those rural Republicans onto these vouchers. Now the amount, instead of $8,000, it's $9,000 to give to parents who want to take their students. But they've limited economically disadvantaged students, special ed students. So it's really not all students who were in our public schools this year. So there's a lot of stuff going on in Austin right now. The teacher vacancy task force, they both have their own issues in them. One of them does have money. The Senate Bill 9 has money for teachers, but it's one-time. It's a one-time pay. The only thing that there's a problem there is that it's $2,000 for teachers in districts like our size, over 20,000. But those those districts that are less than 20,000 students would get $6,000. And so it's been pointed out that a district like Alamo Heights in the middle of San Antonio, a wealthy, well-to-do district, would get $6,000 for their teachers each. So, you know, those are the battles that are going on right now in Austin. The safety bills, pretty much everybody's on board for safety. The Safety Bill 11 probably is moving a lot faster than the House. I think there is a substitute for House Bill 3, meaning that the Senate has added things to the House Bill 3 to, you know, the compromise. We're seeing something like $10 per ADA. Right now we get less than $10 per ADA for safety, but there is a caveat there that we could get about $15,000 per campus to, you know, work on hopefully access doors, cameras. We don't know the specifics, but at least, you know, you can see money in that bill. So again, property taxes, it was such a hot topic at the very beginning, but, you know, the Senate has their version on it and the House has their version on it. And they just, you know, I don't see, like, they haven't shared with us like what the compromise is. Now, it's both a governor and a lieutenant governor and the Speaker of the House. They're pushing for property tax relief. Something's going to come out. If it doesn't come out by the end of May, if vouchers don't come out by the end of May, we think there'll be a special session. And here we go, kind of hanging on. But we're going to be working with some numbers with Mr. Gonzalez. We hope to kind of bring you something. We're just trying to hang on to see what exactly they're going to do. So this would be like early June conversations with the board about what they didn't do and what we still can do as a district. So again, we're watching these emails every day. And today, in fact, text Mike Garza to let Richard Raymond know, and Representative King, Tracy King, if they could vote no on the vouchers.
Yeah.
Just, you know, don't give away $9,000 of public ed money per student. And I think that
And
bill is up to you.
they're both supporting it for that.
Yes, so he did reach out to them, so just trying to get the message up to our representatives and our senator. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. So, yeah, I know, there's tons of questions right there. Thank you. No answers. Yeah, no answers.
Agenda item 4B is presentation from Legacy Water Supply Corporation and SC Legacy Development regarding a potential groundwater lease on the Webb County school lands, potential creation of tax increment, reinvestment, development public improvement district and real estate development in Webb County.
Good evening, members of the board, President Geddes, members of the audience, Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Garcia. So the administration brings to the board tonight a very special and great opportunity, a presentation from Legacy Water Supply Corporation regarding the residential and commercial development that is in the planning stages on Highway 35, basically located with the Walker property, Walker Ranch. I believe through the superintendent's office you were provided with some of the preliminary data. So tonight, on the special call meeting, I know they've been waiting for a few months for this opportunity, but we have Mr. David Earl and Mr. Tom Wendorf, the engineering and associates. So they will have this presentation and offer the opportunity to answer any questions the board may have. So at this time, I will hand it over to Mr. David Earl. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Good evening, Chairman, board members. My name is David Earl with Earl & Associates. It's an honor to be before you tonight, and we spoke briefly, I think, before about this issue, but it's really, really great that you're taking the time to visit with us and allow us to make this presentation. What we think is a very exciting opportunity and a very exciting project in Webb County. Today we're going to go over several issues. We're going to try to respect your time and make sure there's plenty of time for questions. We're going to introduce ourselves and our roles. We're going to talk about the legacy development happening, as your staff mentioned, at I-35 and 255 in central Webb County. We're also going to talk about the Legacy Water Supply Corporation, the background of it, what it's doing, what its mission is, and how the UISD can benefit from that mission, that program, through actually making water royalties off some of the school district lands that have apparently pretty good water on them or under them that can be used. We're also going to talk about specifically the tax increment reinvestment zone one tool, and the Public Improvement District, another tool, that are being used through the county to make this project a reality through an economic development process. We're going to talk about the opportunity for the UISD facilities and delivery and participation in the TIRZ, or the TIRZ. We'll talk about what a TIRZ is. In that presentation, that part of the presentation, we'll talk about, and Tom will go over, what this means for you, both from a student population increase and also from a bricks and mortar requirement, and how we want to work with you to help make sure you have what you need and the students have what they need as a result of this project. And then we're going to talk about your questions and make sure we answer them the best we can, have discussion, and talk about any other issues that may arise. To orientate you, and I want to encourage you to please ask questions if you have with the permission of the chair, because this should be a dialogue. We want to make sure you understand this project fully, and we can brief you and vet these issues any way you'd like to see. First, I want to talk about what the project is. As you can see here, and I don't know if this shows up, it doesn't, but we have the street on the right-hand side of the image is I-35. The street on the left-hand side is the future I-27, or US 83. The roadway kind of cutting through the middle is the toll road, the Camino Colombia, coming from the Columbia Bridge, Texas 255. And then along the bottom, you have Webb Road, at the Webb Road intersection. And that kind of frames the property. All the property you see that are not white, that are in color, are all owned by the Walker family and are being developed. It's roughly 13,000 acres under development in this project over the next 30 years. It has been master planned, and includes a lot of different uses. For example, the top portion, which we're starting actually to move dirt on here in the next month or two, is 5 to 10 acre lots. About 400 of those lots, they're going to be ranchette home sites with public water and all kinds of nice amenities. Over to the left is the Colorado's tract. Those are 1 to 3 acre lots, so they're smaller in size, higher density, but a tremendous amount of amenities. There'll also be a regional airport built on that particular location. In that tract on the left side, that has a 1 to 3 acre lot, you see a kind of an orange colored tract there. That is our proposed site for a high school that we'd like to make sure that you have available to you to build a high school on, or we would help you build a high school. Below it in blue is a commercial center.
I'm sorry, how many acres are you proposing for the high school?
That's about 100, more than 100 acres right now. And we're totally flexible on that. We want to have you all involved in our land planning process. Tell us what you need so we can adjust the boundaries and size of the tracts according to what you and your staff believe is appropriate. Because you know the education demand and what it takes to educate children better than we do. So I want to make sure we accommodate what you need with regard to acreage.
And directly behind it, I'm sorry, is residential, right?
Correct, that's all residential, yeah. That's 1 to 3 acre lot residential. That is correct.
And the blue part of it on the
That
bottom?
is retail commercial.
Retail.
So neighborhood commercial, if you can think of a shopping center around neighborhoods, that type of thing, it has restaurants, it has dry cleaners, retail, that type of thing. A power center. Good questions. Then below that, you see the area with the kind of the box marked, that's called the Mary Kay tract that has the square blocks in it. That is going to be a mixture of workforce housing, about 1,000 homes, as well as industrial. We're going to do a lot of industrial there, probably about 1,500 acres or more of industrial. And there'll be workforce housing, multifamily, retail. And then below that is the Catalinas tract. Those will be half-acre estate lots. There'll be a town center in the middle of that particular development called the Mary Kay. There will be a really beautiful plaza. Church will be located there. It will be a community center framing the residential multifamily. To the right, you have the Webb tract with 500 large nature lots. There'll be a lot of lakes, nature trails, and they have higher elevations, so you have views of the city, even across the Oder and the river. So that's the overall 13,000 acre development in a nutshell.
And this is all within 30 years, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Expecting full development in 30 years?
Yes, ma'am. We, the Walker family, through SE Legacy Development, the development entity that they've created for this project, hired a very well-established, well-known economist firm that did a deep dive into the marketplace to do build-out presumptions and looked at all the absorption numbers and absorption trends and studies. And what you see here is what will be built out over 30 years. Yes. Will the entire 13,000 acres be developed in 30 years? No. But these numbers you see, these numbers reflect what will be built out in 30 years.
So how many phases are you looking at, and where are you looking to start at?
We're starting with the PLUS, phase one. Within the next couple of months, we'll be turning dirt up there. The next phase for the industrial and commercial will be the Mary Kay. We're looking at Tom about, let me introduce these gentlemen. I'm sorry, I should have done that. Tom Windorf is the program manager for the entire project. He is an engineer, has tremendous experience in program management, ranging from billions and billions of dollars of projects federally, nationally, locally, down to being the ex-public works director for a number of cities like San Antonio, Missouri City, others. And then you have Tom Cummings, who's the industrial and commercial developer, overseeing the commercial, retail, and industrial institutional development. So if y'all needed a school built, for example, we could work with you to deliver that school if you'd like. Everything we do is competitively bid, it's put through a competitive process. The residential is being headed up by a relative of the Walker family, which is Westwind Homes, Chris and Jonathan Arthur, who are one of the larger builders in Laredo. And they'll start with, Westwind Homes will start the residential first phase at the top of PLUS, and then we'll, at the same time, a few months after it starts, we'll start with the industrial and retail at the Mary Kay, and then we'll begin to start on the 1 to 3 acre lots or the Colorado. So by the end of this year, we'll be under construction on 3 different phases of this project at one time. So it's not going to sit around idle, it's going to start moving very quickly. So with regard to the water, the Water Supply Corporation currently has 42 wells that are drilled and that are being permitted and going to be drilled. And those wells are shown here with the orange circles with the crosses through them. Those are the wells that are going to be drilled on the Walker property as part of its well field. We're projecting these wells will yield over 10 million gallons or 10,000 acre feet a year, which is more than enough water not only to provide this development, but also to provide a very important part of the community that has not had water historically, which is the Colonias. And the Legacy Water Supply Corporation, which is a nonprofit water supply corporation, has entered into agreement with the county to work on that. We'll get into that a little bit more in a moment. But these wells will yield that water to provide not just for this development, but other essential areas of the community that need water. These are wells into the deep Carrizo. There'll also be wells in the Sparta Aquifer, but we're going deep. These wells cost an average of about $3.5 million a piece to make sure we're not competing with landowners with their water that they use for their ranches and homes. We're going much deeper into other aquifers, so there's no interference. One real opportunity with regard to that is the school land, which is located about 14 miles north of our well field that you see down at the bottom there, outlined in red. Down at the very bottom, you see a tag that says Legacy Water Supply Corporation Treatment Plant Site. That is a plant that's being designed right now. It'll be finished in probably 2026. It'll be able to produce and provide that 10 million gallons a day, or roughly 10,000 acre feet a year to the communities. But we need raw water to do that, and we're also entering into negotiations with the city of Laredo. We've submitted a response to their request for information to provide Laredo with backup water and emergency water. So we're looking at expanding our well fields, and we've designed a potential pipeline that's 14 miles long running to the north that can touch and take water from the school land. And the way this is all set up is that whoever's providing water from their lands gets paid a royalty. Because you have these school lands held in trust for you by the county, if these lands become involved in the water production process to serve the community, the Colonias, and the city of Laredo, the money for those royalties, just like oil and gas revenue, would flow into the trust, which would flow primarily under the agreements to your district.
Do you have permits already for this pipeline?
So we do not have the pipeline permitted. However, a water supply corporation in Texas has an absolute right to use state right-of-way for water facilities. So we will be able to use the TxDOT right-of-way that's guaranteed by the Constitution and the laws of Texas to put this pipeline in. As you can see, this pipeline is relying on the right-of-way of 83 and 44 to get to that property. So it's just a matter of working out the design with TxDOT. We automatically have the permission to build the pipeline in the TxDOT right-of-way.
And how many miles are you looking at for that pipeline?
14 miles.
14 miles?
That's right. So it's about a $14 million pipeline, taking raw water from that property down. And we'll be putting other water from other well fields that we have on the way into the pipeline as well to help totally bring up the water to what the demand will be for the city of Laredo.
How many water wells do you have active right now?
Right now, we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 12 active wells, of which 2 are fully certified public drinking water supply wells. Another one's in construction, is a certified public water supply well. And we have another roughly 40 wells in the permit process at TCEQ waiting to be constructed. Our biggest delay in that is actually getting the drillers.
Right.
It's hard to find. So we've actually partnered
Do you have
with
investors for the building?
Well, fortunately, the Walkers are capable of self-funding the entire project. They're very blessed with a lot of oil and gas revenue. They have about 100,000 acres under production, and so we don't need to have investors. But we are, for some of the off-site stuff we're doing like this, going to be partnering with the county and creating a PID and a TERS and issuing bonds to fund some of that public infrastructure. But all the stuff that's happening down the Legacy project is being self-funded and will be basically funded through public finance but secured by the Walkers' property. And they'll be responsible for the debt service on that portion of it. But the idea is to get that water and put it into production and good use for the community and let the school district benefit financially through royalty payments, kind of in a nutshell. So you see I-35 there, you see Texas 44, you get an idea of where the school lands are up there. There are other school lands further to the east on 44, past Ensenada, and we're looking at those potentially. But we'd like to do a full hydraulic analysis of this property to make sure we understand fully what it can yield. We're in the process of doing that right now on other tracks. The people that really need the water the most, who have been underserved or unserved for decades, are the colonials. Quite unfortunate, it's very, very sad that they were sold these properties without any water, without the ability to get utilities. The Commissioner's Court has passed a resolution to partner with the Legacy Water Supply Corporation to get the water to the colonias, and that is one of our primary focuses right now. And I think the school district joining with us in that focus, even though it's financially beneficial to you, is a very good thing and a thing that really benefits a segment of community that's large, over 2,500 to 3,000 families without water currently that need it to have good health and safety and a good ability to have good, safe housing. With that, I want to turn it over to Tom Windorf to talk about specifically the Legacy Water Supply Corporation, what it's doing with West County, and how these things can work together. So I'll leave it to Tom.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Good evening. Legacy Water Supply Corporation is partnering with Webb County and the USDA and would like to partner with the UISD, the city, and other local entities in implementing this program. The USDA, we've had multiple meetings with them, and they will be working with us in that effort. Webb County, we have a resolution from Webb County, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. We're presenting to you tonight. We've also submitted a proposal to the city. They put out a request for proposals for 25 million gallons a day of supply that they would like to nail down now. In summary, what we want to do is we want to use the groundwater resources for the public water supply, develop and construct a reliable water resource for the region. So we're really thinking regionally. And Legacy Water Supply Corp. is in place today and has it's fully within Webb County. It has Webb County interests as a priority. It has nonprofit status. I'll talk a little bit about the team of experts that are on board, and it has capacity to enter into these various agreements with these agencies we've talked about, and also Texas General Land Office, which is the HUD conduit, Housing and Urban Development, other private entities, and to develop all of these water resource improvements and provide wholesale potable water. And Legacy Water Supply Corporation is a wholesaler of water. We do also have Legacy Water Control and Improvement District, and that's a retailer of water and sewer, but that will be primarily serving the Walker property. So where are we going to get these resources? David talked a little bit about the Carrizo aquifer. This map tries to show that here, and the Sparta is the yellow part. It's a narrow area, and the Sparta is typically the upper 1,000 feet from ground level to about 1,000 feet. The Carrizo is down around 3,000 to 3,300 feet deep. So that's the deep area. All of this water is brackish water in the Carrizo, so it has to be treated. And the treatment is microfiltration and reverse osmosis. Our concept of operations is fairly simple. Basically, it's going from left to right. We start at the wellhead. It goes to a pressure tank. One of the interesting things is the water comes out kind of hot, and so it has to cool down. We take it through a pump station, through this raw water treatment plant, which is microfiltration and reverse osmosis, to a pump station, storage tanks, homes, and then we will also have a 4 million gallon per day regional wastewater treatment plant that will serve primarily the industrial area, the town center, and those more dense areas of development. One of the things that we've done is we've thought forward. One of the things that costs the most in running a utility is your electrical cost. And so we are situated where we can actually take off gas at the rate that it's sold to the pipeline company. So that can lower our electrical costs significantly. We're looking at doing that in the future. More immediately is going to be emergency power, because you have to have emergency power for these facilities.
Storage tanks?
Yeah.
It's only going to be one?
Oh, no, there's going to be, no, there's
How
going to
large are
actually
these
be,
tanks?
there's actually, well, they're going to be various sizes, but there's going to be an elevated storage tank at the regional water treatment plant site. There's going to be 4 ground storage tanks there, and there will be other storage tanks as needed throughout the area to create the appropriate pressure and water flow.
Considering where it's going to be located, does
Mhm.
TCEQ have any issues with those above-ground storage tanks? No?
None of this, no. No, in fact, they've issued a public water supply system, ID to Legacy Water Supply Corporation, and that's all moving forward.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And she up on the size of the tank.
The size, the sizes will vary. Initially, there'll probably be some 100,000 gallon tanks, but ultimately there could be some 1 to 2 million and maybe even larger size tanks. Okay. The project delivery team, you can see we've got a lot of experts on this in this process. We have Norris Leal, who's an expert in water treatment and wastewater treatment. LRE is our hydrogeologist. KFW is now Colliers Engineering. They are our civil engineer, and so we've got other folks. So our project status is we've adopted a resolution to direct county staff to work with and support legacy water control improvement districts activities. That was done with Webb County back in November. There have been joint applications filed by the county and Legacy Water Supply Corp. To pursue all available local, federal, state funds, et cetera. That was completed in in November of 2022. We've also met with USDA and their regional administrator. Henry Cuellar was at that meeting. He was very supportive of the whole effort to move this regional water program forward. Design and permitting is underway for the regional water treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant, the 42 wells Dave was talking about, and the phase 1 water treatment plant. So, and we, like I said, we do have a TCEQ public water system ID. We are in the process of creating these public improvement districts and tax increment reinvestment zones in these benefited areas. That is projected the second quarter of this year. And we look forward to issuing public financing bonds using these TERS approvals for co-funding of the project. So that kind of goes to your questions on finance, where we plan to head. So this, I'm not going to walk through every little project on here. These are actually big projects. But I do want to bring your attention to a couple of things. We are actually dedicating property to South Texas Electric Cooperative for an electric substation. That'll be a 10-acre substation on the property, and also an AEP electric substation. That's up in the Pelis area. So this has a very sparse electrical network up in this area. So we're helping build that out. We've also made significant progress on a Webb County-wide aquifer water model. One of the challenges down here is that there's not a lot of scientific data to show specifically where to go to produce what water and how to best do that. And so we're collecting that data, our hydrogeologist is, and that information will be made available not just for Legacy Water Supply Corp., but as a public resource. There's also, David mentioned this, leasing land for well fields and paying landowner a royalty for water produced. That we've had several landmen working on that. We're working that pretty significantly for about 60 days, and then we said we need to stop and let the water model catch up with us so we can better target where to go. And also this proposed lease of public school land, that could be a potential for UISD to get plus or minus 60% of revenue from that. And so that's another area we'll want to talk more about. So David, you're ready to field questions on the Water Supply Corp?
Absolutely, thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
So far we've gone through the outline of the project. We've talked about the Water Supply Corporation, which is a governmental entity, and that's a quasi-governmental entity, nonprofit, created for this project and to bring the water to Webb County, a new water source. We've talked about the school district land participation, possibly, and of course the county would have to approve that because they're your trustee of that land. They hold it in trust for you as a beneficiary in the other districts. And we've talked about a lot of other things at this point, and we're about ready to transition to the TERS and some other concepts that can come out of this for the district from the TERS. But before we do, I want to stop here and ask if you have any questions on the Legacy Water Supply Corporation we've covered so far. Be happy to answer.
Right, so we're talking about water, the different use and obtaining the water from the ground and then being able to use the water for different things. At any point, is there a need to create that groundwater conservation district? I know that's been
Great
talked
question.
about.
Yeah, that's a very hot topic. Okay.
Even though the water's coming from private land,
Yes, yes.
the water essentially is not private, so.
Well, so the water water is private, just like the oil and gas is private, and that's why you get paid a royalty to sever it from your land and put it into production for the benefit of the public. However, your staff did a very, very efficient and accurate presentation a moment ago on your finances and how the state legislature definitely impacts your financial situation. The same is true for water in the state. The legislature can control that. So the reason we wanted to create a water conservation district was not to regulate people's water, not to say you can pump water, you can't pump water. The rule of capture is alive and well in Texas. And everybody that owns land owns the water under the land, and they can produce as much as they want. That's not the issue. The issue is that there's a group under the state water planning process that the legislature has implemented many years ago. They break the state into different regions, A, B, C, D. We're in Region M, okay? And the Region M water district is then broken into groundwater management areas. We are in Webb County, Groundwater Management 13, GMA 13. GMA 13 is made up of multiple counties, about 8 or 9 counties, including Webb County. Here's the thing. The GMA board gets to decide what county, what parts of what aquifers are going to be presumed to pump how much water, they call desired future conditions, for groundwater production in that area that they control. And then they decide that, and they pass a model and approve a model that goes to the Region M. They adopt it, collect it with the other GMAs in their region, and then that goes up to the Texas Water Development Board, and by golly, the Texas Water Development Board implements that as the state water plan. Does it affect how much water you can produce? Absolutely not. What it does affect is whether or not you can get any state funds for water projects. Because in order to get state funds for water projects, you have to show that what you're proposing does not violate, but is in compliance with or furtherance of the state water plan. Now, in this GMA 13 region, this multi-county region, the Carrizo Aquifer is assumed or projected to be able to produce about 400,000 acre feet a year. In that region, GMA 13, the largest population, the county with the largest population by far is Webb County, because it has Laredo, and Laredo has over 350,000 people. Yet, Laredo has never had representation on the GMA 13 because it does not have a groundwater conservation district. Just like this board decides policies for the education of the kids, the GMA 13 decides the water policy for the people who live in that multi-county region. Imagine if there was a district, say District 7, that didn't have a representative representing that district. How much funding and attention would that district get? Not as much. That's just reality. So Webb County historically has not gotten a fair shake. What they've done is they've given Webb County, out of the 400,000 acre feet, only an allocation of 912 acre feet a year total for the entire county to be produced from the groundwater. Just the oil and gas industry alone in Webb County uses between 5,000 to 10,000 acre feet a year. They ignore that science. They ignore that reality, and they give Webb County only 916 acre feet a year. So we need a groundwater conservation district so we have a voice at the table. And Webb County can get its fair share of state funds to solve the water problem that it faces. Right now, Webb County and Laredo have only one source of water, the river. That's it. And that's not controlled completely by this country, or certainly not by the city of Laredo. We need an alternate source of water. We can't get the funding to build the infrastructure from the state without changing the water plan. We can't change the water plan without having representation on GMA 13. And we don't get that representation unless we have a groundwater conservation district. So what the Walkers have agreed to do, and I want to really compliment Senator Iaccarini, Tracy King, and especially, the state rep for this county is amazing, Representative Raymond. He has just worked himself to death on it. And we got a bill passed through the House to create a groundwater conservation district for Webb County. But there was opposition. They didn't want it to pass. And the people that didn't want it to pass weren't really from Webb County. It was from those other counties that currently get all the water and money. So what we did to try to satisfy them was to shrink this down to just the Walker property. And I can tell you today that bill, in the Senate, there was a floor amendment At about 5:32 p.m., the floor amendment passed, and so Groundwater Conservation District, Central Webb County, on the 13,000 acres, is now approved in the Senate and engrossed. It now moves to the House. It's now up to Tracy King. Again, Tracy King has a complete power to decide whether or not Webb County gets representation at the table for the first time since the creation of the water planning process in Texas. If he lets that bill go through the House floor and it passes, we have a water district. It doesn't affect anybody's land except the Walkers. They're voluntarily putting their land in it so that Webb County can have a voice at the table. The County Commissioners Court will appoint that voice.
So where's the controversy? Is the controversy from other counties that don't want us to have this district? And is there controversy from our city government?
Good question. The City of Laredo has issued a statement and letter in support of the creation of the Conservation District. They understand the issue. Every grant they've ever made for state funding for a water project has been denied because it would rely on groundwater, to the extent it was a groundwater project, because the groundwater withdrawal they asked for wouldn't meet the state water plan. So the city actually issued a letter to the senators and state reps in support of creation of the water district. Whether it's countywide or just on the 13,000 acres, they support it. The Commissioners Court initially said they supported a countywide district. However, a lot of ranchers and people who own land and who sell water to the oil and gas companies, they were concerned that somehow a water conservation district would limit or regulate their production of water or ownership of water. That is not the case, but I understand their fear. And so they were, not knowing what this would mean for them, they were opposing it. So in response to that opposition, the county said, hey, we're going to change our position, understandably, because they represent the people, landowners, and everybody there. We're still supporting the creation of a groundwater conservation district, but only on this small area of property where someone's asking for it to be created. Fair enough. So there's no controversy at the county. There's no controversy at the city. The real opposition is coming from the other counties that Tracy King represents, because he represents not only Webb County, but all these other counties like Dimmitt, various other counties that get all the water. Right.
And we're surrounded by conservation districts. We have conservation districts around our
everywhere
county,
around
right?
the county, yes. And they all have a voice. And they all get more water than you do and more money than you do. More funding.
That's a little bit of my concern right there. So does it leave out the larger Webb County from this funding? That's
Unfortunately,
kind of
yes.
concerning.
And we tried to make it the entire county. That's how we originally presented the bill.
Would it affect future hope for a larger Webb County district?
Well, I think in discussions with Senator Zaffarini and some other lobbyists representing, different landowners, the thought was go ahead and create it on this smaller area, and then we'll come back in 2 years after having people have a chance to understand the issue better and try to do maybe a larger area next session. However, once we have the small area, create at least one district in Webb County. It's a start. Landowners, it's a start, and landowners can petition to become part of it. So if you have a 1,000-acre ranch, you can say, I'd like to be in that district. And no one's going to oppose that. And you get to add your property to it. Now your property qualifies for state funding.
Even if your property is on the other side of Webb County?
It doesn't have to be contiguous.
Oh, good. Okay, that was a
The
question.
districts are created to study the water and the science. And the Walkers invested
So
lots of
the
money.
creation of this water district obviously is going to be beneficial to the project by allowing state funds to flow into the project and
Correct.
Covering some of the costs of the project. Is that correct?
Yeah, every property owner in this county has paid taxes to the state since the creation of Texas, right? And there's not been a penny that's been able to be used by any landowner, any citizen, taxpayer in Webb County for a water project using groundwater because of this problem and lack of representation.
So when you say that other landowners can petition to become a part of this district, who determines whether they're allowed in?
I can tell you that the district board that's appointed for this district, if it's created, and Tracy King may choose to kill it because he has people in other counties asking him to. He may say it's got to be countywide, and that's going to create the conflict again. He knows it will die.
Right.
But whatever he does, he does. He's a good man. He's a good representative. But if a property owner asks to come into it, the board of the conservation district gets to vote yes or no. I can tell you standing here knowing the people behind this, that they would say, yes, please, come on in. Let's solve this problem for Webb County together.
So, and that board is the Walker family, or is it
No,
others?
it'll be appointed initially, and then it has to be elected from property owners in the district. So to answer your question, the initial board would be people that own the Walker family or the representatives. But as the district grows and as people buy these homes, they'll be able to run for office and get elected into that district. Good questions. I'm glad you brought that up because that's a real-time issue. It's happening literally as we speak at the legislature. Sorry.
That's okay. Any other questions?
Let me follow up with that same thought on the creation of the conservation district, whether it goes forward or not. That will not determine or hinder the progress of the project, right? It's
Correct. The project's going to move forward with or without a conservation district. The conservation district's not needed at all to do this legacy project.
right.
The conservation district's not needed at all, even to take the money to the water to the Colonias. The problem is the water would be more expensive to the Colonias and other parts of Webb County if it all has to be funded from local tax dollars, local payments, local water rates, and not use grant money from the state. The state has billions of dollars in grant money called SWIFT funds sitting in the Texas Water Development Board that you can apply for, and the Colonias, ironically, are the #1 priority in Texas for use of that money, and they can't allow a dollar to be used in Webb County to help the Colonias, because if we rely on groundwater, the people in these other counties say, no, 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 you can't use it. You only get 916 acre feet a year, and you're already producing more than 20,000 acre feet a year, so you can't get any more groundwater.
David, it may be good to point out the city is requesting
Yes.
new development.
Yeah, two things to point out. The city actually asked this board, this GMA 13, to change the allocation for Webb County to 50,000 acre feet. They were completely ignored by the board at GMA 13. I was there, I saw it. In addition, right now, the city, when people come and want to do new subdivisions, build a new industrial complex, build a new factory with new jobs, the city says, go talk to Legacy Water Supply Corporation, we don't have any more water. That's where we're at right now. All the developments up by this area that is rapidly growing have been referred to us for water because we're the only ultimate source of groundwater right now, unless they drill their own wells and create a separate utility, which is very difficult to do on your own.
The other thing is the water.
In addition, I don't want to misquote this, but I know across the river our neighbors on the other side of the river only have a 1-day supply of water without a backup supply. I can't give you at this moment an accurate estimate on how much Laredo has. If the river had some type of event that became contaminated, couldn't be treated, but it's not much more than that. It's an urgent issue for this community, and it cannot be ignored.
And would this groundwater have, would it be more than a day supply?
Yes.
It would be firm because it comes from the ground, and it would be secure.
And safe. Not subject to any kind of tampering, not subject to pollution. It's all confined to
Of course,
pipes.
things can happen.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not an open river.
It's, I'm gonna say that, yes,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
And so we're really, you know, and I apologize if I seem very committed to this, but I am. And I'm not ashamed to tell you that because I'm passionate about it. It's important to the people that need it the most, and there's no reason they should go without it.
And it's important to our state and national economy because of the economic engine that Laredo is.
#1 land port in the United States.
Correct.
And we shouldn't have this situation. It's such an important, critical part of the supply chain for our nation.
But we could go on
Yeah,
for a
we'll go
long
on forever.
time on
Yeah.
this. You probably ought to get on to
Yep,
the
sorry.
text.
We'll go on to the next
It
one.
could-
Any other questions on legacy water? supply?
Unless y'all have other questions.
Not at this time.
Okay.
Just quickly,
Yeah.
so if we did this opportunity with UISD, what we'd do is enter into a groundwater lease with Webb County as a trustee for the district. The Water Supply Corporation would pay all the costs of drilling the wells, producing the groundwater for the benefit of the water Supply Corporation providing it to Colonias and the other projects. And the Legacy Water Supply Corporation would pay the county, as trustee for the benefit of the districts, a royalty for every 1,000 gallons of groundwater produced from those wells in the project. The royalties would flow to the county, and the net revenues would flow to the school districts according to the percentage set forth in the trust agreement. I believe yours currently, I think, is 91%. Example, if we have 8 wells on your property, 500 gallons a minute, and you got 50 cents per 1,000 gallons, that's approximately $600,000 extra a year to the district. May not sound like a lot of money, but every bit helps. And you're helping solve the water problem for the community. Right now, that land's just sitting there without really, maybe somebody's leasing it for hunting or something, I don't know, but might as well make it do something good for you, for your children that you educate, and for the community. So what are we requesting with regard to the water issue? All we're requesting is for the board at some point, obviously not tonight, to pass a resolution that would suggest entering into a groundwater lease with the Legacy Water Supply Corporations to drill the wells, and request the other school districts that are beneficiaries of the same trust to look at doing the same thing. So it can be a unanimous effort. And that way the county feels comfortable, there's no conflict or issue. Assuming that's the case, the county as trustee feels comfortable. It would go through Nathan Bratton probably to review and the legal aspects of your council. And if everybody approves it, the county would approve that lease, and that revenue could flow to the benefit of the trust for the districts, and the water could be used for the community. That's what we're asking for. So we would ask that y'all consider at a future agenda looking at putting that resolution on, and then letting that be provided to the other districts as an example that they could follow to allow this to become a reality, if you choose to do so.
You guys have already presented to the Webb County Commissioners Court previously, and they adopted a resolution. Then just recently, days ago, they modified it.
Well, there's several resolutions they've adopted. They adopted
the one concerning the groundwater conservation. Yes.
They adopted a resolution supporting the creation of groundwater conservation as a whole county.
Right.
Then recently, they adopted a revised resolution that it supports, that says we don't want it for the whole county, but we support it. If you look at the last provision of the resolution, it says, but we do support it for the 13,000 acres. Yeah.
So at this point, there's a resolution just for some type of agreement. So it would be on us as a...
Oh, okay.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, we're not asking you to support the creation of the groundwater conservation district.
Right.
That fuse is already burnt. The legislature, your support,
Right.
although it would be appreciated, wouldn't make a difference in the legislature right now. So resolution we're asking for is whether or not you want to go forward to see the county enter into a groundwater lease. You can do that whether or not there's a groundwater conservation district. It's a question of whether you want the county as your trustee to enter into a groundwater lease to get production of water from the
What I'm
land.
pointing out is there's already some support there from the commissioners.
We've already talked to the commissioners about this issue. I think they universally support the idea. I'm not speaking for them, but in my discussions, they want to see an alternate groundwater supply, and the position is, why not let that benefit the kids to the extent it can before it starts benefiting the private landowners?
And so the city with their letter, was that a resolution for you?
Yeah, we have a resolution from the city asking for an increase in the water withdrawal capacity for the county. The city has worked with us very closely in supporting the changes in the legislation. They support the creation of the groundwater conservation district. They know they need to sit at the table like everybody else in Webb County. They would support the idea of this because they put out an RFQ for someone to provide them with 25 to 50,000 acre feet a year of emergency water, for the reasons we stated, and an alternate water supply so they can continue to grow as a city and have development, create jobs, etc. So that's why Legacy submitted their response to that. We were one of 3 people or entities, the only one I think in Webb County, and they're moving forward with the process of evaluating those.
So, just real quick, the groundwater conservation district is one issue.
Right.
The issue that we're asking you for a future meeting is to adopt a resolution with these two items. I think you've got them in front of you.
Right.
And right here. And that's what we're looking for from this United ISD.
But you need it because the commissioners are the ones who pretty
Well,
much
we
control.
would.
They do, but they want to know what you want.
Right.
I think they want to know what, if I'm the trustee over a trust and I have beneficiaries that I'm responsible for, I want to know what the beneficiaries are.
Right.
We've gone to them before with solar panels, with
Exactly.
windmills,
Yeah.
Right.
and other
Oil and
potential
gas
projects that
resources.
that create
But if-
revenue. But I think this was a really good one.
It's a supportive concept.
You're not just running the
surface?
the surface.
No.
It's still continue to be used as is.
Yeah, these are
for
cleaner than an oil
grazing.
well and they take up less land
Sure.
There'll be about a 2-acre footprint
for a well site.
for a well site. And then you have to get power to the well, and then you have to get the raw water transmitted from the well to the water treatment plant.
Do you all know exactly how many acres the county holds in trust?
This particular tract alone is over 500 acres. The other tract may be larger, down 40.
I think it's 44.
I think it's 4,000 acres down 44.
Yeah.
But we want to study that one more before we can say yes or no. This one we know will produce good water.
Right.
So you already have a water well on it that was drilled some time ago that did about 500 gallons a minute. So it's a very productive zone. And
How long ago was that?
do you recall? It was many years ago.
It was with Lewis.
Lewis Petroleum did it as part
They
of
used
the.
it for their well.
For the well?
That's when they
Right.
closed their well since.
Yes, but they did keep records of its production.
Mr. Earl, the legislation, I guess, creating the MMD,
Yes.
Municipal Management District, does that impact the project at all, or what is that?
Not the
related?
water project. Let me explain that to you.
Sure.
When you do a large 13,000 acre project like this, you've got to have an entity. There's no city out there, it's not an ETJ. So you have to create, for lack of a better word, a type of city to own and maintain all the streets, do the drainage, do the sewer, the water, service to customers. And in order to do that, you got to create an entity to be that utility. The entity that the county created, we petitioned to create an entity to be the utility, which is a legacy water control and improvement district, very standard water district under state law. It can do drainage, it can do sewer, it can do water, it can do recycle water. So great, so we got that created and we're ready to go with that. The thing about a legacy, the water control and improvement district, it doesn't have road powers. It can't own and maintain roads. And obviously that's a big part of the development. So what we're doing is converting it by legislation from just a water control and improvement district to what they call a municipal management district, which is more like a city. So it'll have the powers to do roads. It has more regulatory powers over floodplains. It can do more with regard to regulating land use and that type of thing to keep everything sustainable and clean and proper. That's what that's for. And I don't believe there's any opposition to that bill. And it should be passed, I believe, unless something gets frozen in the session like it sometimes does. And that's what that bill does. It has nothing to do with this water project. It has to do with providing utilities, owning and maintaining utilities within the project as they're built and dedicated to the municipal management district. It's retail utilities. It's not the wholesale utilities. That's what the Water Supply Corporation does.
So do they interact at all with the Water Supply
Yes,
Corporation?
so that's a good question. The Legacy Water Supply Corporation would buy water from, the MMD or the Legacy Water Control Improvement District, the utility, would buy wholesale treated water from the Legacy Water Supply Corporation and then retail that water to the public within the development. Just like the city of Laredo wants to buy wholesale water, treated water, meeting all state standards from the Water Supply Corporation and then retail it to its community that it serves. So as a nonprofit, the Legacy Water Supply Corporation would provide wholesale water to everybody that needs it. So there is that interaction. The WCID or the MMD is a customer, a wholesale customer for water and actually sewer service from the Water Supply Corporation.
And does it only serve the Walker property, the WCID?
The WCID can just currently serves the Walker property, but it can be expanded if an adjoining property owner wants to bring their property into it. In fact, we met with a developer today who very good relationship with, Kirk Krause, he's doing the Gateway project. And we were talking about, did he want the WCID to serve his northern tracts? He's got about 3,000 acres. He's created a mud on some of it, about 400 acres. But we're talking about would it be more cost effective for the end user? Does he want the WCID to annex in certain parts and serve it, or does he want his own MUD to expand and serve it? The idea is you duplicate replication of utilities by regionalization, which brings the cost down, so the end consumer pays less for water, less for sewer. And that's the idea. There's not profit in running a utility. In fact, the government regulates how much you can make in return. It's really about what's more efficient, but it's needed for development.
Is it the same board members on the WCID that would be on the MMD if legislation passes?
Yeah, if the legislation passes, there's real strict standards on who can be on a WCID. You can't be the developer, you can't be an agent or engineer attorney for the developer. It's a lot of strict standards. It's an elected board. The Water Control and Improvement District has been confirmed by election. All the board members have been elected by election. And those board members would automatically transfer into the MMD position until the next election, and then they would be, replaced on the regular election cycle.
Okay. Every 4 years?
They're staggered terms, but it's every 2 or 4 years, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you asking for a specific period of lease, or is it?
It's subject to whatever the county wants to negotiate. I mean, they'll represent you in that negotiation. I'm sure you have people involved in it, but
What's your typical?
we would, because of the amount of cost for infrastructure to tie it together, we'd want a longer term lease because we'd want to be able to make that congruent with the bonds. So we probably want a 10-year lease with 2 10-year renewable terms, subject to everyone complying with the terms of it. If there was a breach, obviously it could be terminated, but we'd want the lease to be stable enough to support the model for the bonds. And that's what we'll be looking at.
You did in the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned at the high school.
Yes.
And your willingness to help this.
We're going to get there.
Absolutely.
Okay, you're getting there.
We're going to get there.
That's the next slide.
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm here to help now.
Okay.
I'll go all over the place if you let me. So if there's not any other, I'm happy to answer any more questions you got. I love to answer questions. It's an important issue. I love having the dialogue and sharing what I've been blessed to know, if you want to hear it. So ask questions on the water issues, but if not, we'll get into the project, the tax increment reinvestment part of it, and how it can benefit you, and what the Walker family, as the owners of the property and their development company, want to do to make sure the kids have good schools in this project. So if you have any other questions on water, I'll move into the next topic. The tax increment reinvestment zone. So what is tax increment financing? Tax increment financing is created under Chapter 311 of the tax code. Just like you have regulations governing your finances, the tax code also regulates these economic development zones called reinvestment zones. It allows for the creation of a special district on the 13,000 acres. Within the zone, it pays for the cost to build public infrastructure, including school facilities. It can pay for that. Streets, curbs, water, sewer lines, etc. can all be paid for, reimbursed. The source of the funding for these reimbursements to the developer, to the project, is the increase in property taxes created by the development. What's that look like? Before we get into that, there's some acronyms. So people hear the term TIRZ, T-I-R-Z, a tax increment reinvestment zone. They heard the term TIF, TIF, tax increment financing. They're describing the same thing, but the TIRZ is the zone, the physical boundaries in which a TIF, tax increment financing, takes place. So the TIRZ is the area, and the TIF is the process to raise funds through tax increment financing. The increment that it's talking about is the added tax revenue created by the development of the property. So let's say you start off with 1 million acres of raw land, and it becomes 30 million after you develop it. The million is called the base value. Everybody gets their taxes on the base value like they always have. But the $29 million, the difference between the million and 30 million, that's the incremental value, or the increased captured value from the development itself. The participating tax entities, and any tax entity can participate, city, county, school district, the WCID, anybody that has the power to tax, they pledge a certain amount of that increase that flows into a fund to pay bonds to build the infrastructure. Why? because that increases their tax base, they have more tax revenue, and when the TERS is over, they get 100% of that increase in perpetuity. Okay? So the financing is using that increase in tax revenue or increment to use to reimburse the cost of the bonds for the infrastructure costs, and that TERS is the area in which it takes place. So a simple example. You've got raw land, and I know Laredo doesn't look this way unless there's been a lot of rain, but we use it anyway. The raw land's worth $2 million. Infrastructure cost is $5 million, and there'll be 400 new homes. Very simplistic model, just for the purpose of understanding the concept. These homes are valued at $200,000. That's $80 million in extra value added. So what happens is you start off with the base value, which is represented by the green bar in the graph. Let's say the TERS lasts 25 years and then it's terminated. As you start going under construction and you develop the homes, the value of that subdivision goes out of ag value and it starts going up in value because you have rooftops. That light green is the tax increment on which the assessments or the tax participation occurs. And the new increased increment real property generated within the zone belongs to the TERS to reimburse the cost of public improvements, or a percentage of it does, is negotiated. But the base value that was there before continues to 100% flow to the taxing entities. So after build out in this little example, there's $560,000 per year in available taxes for the developer reimbursement for payments of bonds. After that 25 years is over, all of that money goes completely to the taxing entities. If there's any money left over, it goes to the taxing entities, pro rata, to the extent they participate. So when the bonds are paid off, the TERS terminates on a set date, whichever occurs first, and pay off with a set date. And that's how taxing and financing works. Any questions about the process of taxing and financing? It's like drinking out of a fire.
Yeah, I'm just trying to process here.
Okay. So then we get into what this means for you and how you can be helped by it, and we can work together in partnership on it. And I'll let Tom take that over because I'm getting long-winded. You're probably tired of talking to me.
Okay. Thank you, David. So what we have here are the student projections for legacy development. Understand we've worked with your staff in Ricky and his staff to review these, develop these. So we have workforce housing, 1,000 units, 1.5 students per home, 1,500 apartments and so forth. I won't go through all this, but if you have a question about these assumptions, just let me know. Okay, so total projected students for Legacy is 4,175. And again, that's a projection, it's subject to change. Remember, the Legacy plan that David showed is a concept. There's going to be fine tuning as we go through this 30-year phase, okay? All right, so the expressed needs for UISD included UISD Elementary School 1 and 2, a bus facility, a middle school, a 9th grade school, and a high school. So those are the facilities that were expressed as a need within the boundaries of the 13,000 acre development. These costs were taken, and they're budgetary costs that Enrique and I talked about. And still good?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just checking.
It already went up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but these are the costs. So essentially, you have about $390 million in estimated costs for these facilities. And so, what we did is we said, okay, not everything's going to be needed in year one, right? And so we said, let's start looking at what's needed in year 4, and that's when things would start. So you can see the first column there, $20 million for elementary school 1, and that's not the total construction cost. That's to get the design and construction started, and you have a total of $20 million in need that year. Year 5, $25 million to complete UISD Elementary School 1, and then another $20 million for the UISD bus facility. That gives you $65 million of total aggregate need in year 5. Now, I can read off each line. You guys can do that. But you can see, this is how we do a build-up for cost. And again, this is a concept, this is an estimate. Things can be accelerated, things can be slid, okay?
So the commitment to the district would be a financial donation, a monetary donation,
Well, it's not a
land.
donation, it's a,
There's two, if I can answer that?
yeah,
So one commitment is the land, first of all, will be
Okay.
donated. Not purchased, but donated. All the land necessary for schools and school facilities will be donated by the Walker family. We're talking quite a bit of land, but that's okay, it's needed, it's part of the program. Financially, the biggest problem for, and I'm on a school district board, I understand it. The biggest problem for school districts is how do you finance your bricks and mortar? Normally, you have to go out for bonds. What happens when the bonds aren't agreeable with the community you serve because they're more conservative or a lot of them have kids, whatever? It makes it difficult. So the TIF can act as a bridge that allows bonds to be issued without having to get approval by the voters because they're not affected by those bonds. Not $1 of their tax money goes to pay those bonds. The only money going to pay the bonds is the revenue off of the acreage in the zone. That's it.
and the bonds are TIF.
And the bonds are TERS bonds or PID bonds, and they're not the general obligation of the school district. So they don't affect any other taxpayers. They're just the obligation of the TERS.
So to put it simply, then the bond would be gotten, that's not a word, gotten for us. The bond would be.
We would
what's
secure the
word I'm
bond
gonna
funding
issue?
issued for
Yes,
you.
issued, that's the word I'm
The
looking
way
for.
it works is the
Right.
county, because it creates the
Right.
TERS, would be the bond issuer at the request of the TERS board. The county's not on the hook for the bonds either, by the way. It all falls back on the property owner's property and the taxes generated from that acreage, the 13,000 acres. That's the security for the bonds, and that is the revenue source for the bonds.
So this wouldn't go through a bond election?
Correct.
No, but that's only a portion of the cost.
Well, let's talk through
We'll talk about that.
let's talk through the next slide.
Okay.
You'd be surprised how far your money can go when it's done this way.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Did we provide the sense of urgency for like the completion of
Well,
the elementary and the high school?
what we did, I coordinated with Enrique, and what we tried to do is just come up with something that's a reasonable concept.
It can
And
be changed.
It can, oh
It can
yeah.
be modified, but it's
Nothing's-
just an example.
Nothing's in stone, this is a concept at this point, but I will tell you, it's refined, and you'll see in this next slide, it's refined so that it kind of stays below that $390 million cap.
Right. And these are conservative estimates. I'll tell you that when we do these plans, we try to under-promise and over-deliver on performance. And we work with your staff to understand what the normal costs are for these developments. We increase them over time with escalators for interest or for inflation. The sense of urgency for creating the buildings so the kids have a place to be educated is based on the projected build-out and the number of children generated per year and the accumulation of students.
Totally understand.
Yeah.
So what is a district's investment like for?
So the district would actually, what the district's investment would be under this program is saying, we'll pledge a certain amount of our M&O tax rate generated within this new project for the new value to go toward the bonds.
Which is estimated, M&O, estimate how much money?
Well, your M&O rate fluctuates depending on what you set it at, but at the current M&O rate, what he's going to go through is if you participate at 50% M&O, this is how much in bonds we could do. If you participate at 75%, this is how much in bonds we could do. 100% in bonds we could do. This assumes current interest rates, it assumes current market conditions. If the project over exceeds the expectations, which I think it will, those numbers could go up, but this is conservative, okay? So your investment to get to the full value of what you need, the full investment to educate those kids is the difference between what you could raise in these bonds and the total cost. So it's roughly, we're paying for half the cost through these bonds of the total amount of what you would need for the full build-out, and this is a premium build-out of schools and facilities.
You said these bonds are paid through tax that it gets through the property, right?
Correct.
Does the district get any revenue, I guess, through the taxes?
Yeah, so
Once the homes are built?
Yeah, you continue to get these things right here. One, you get 100% of your debt service tax. So if you have bonds outstanding, this project's going to add about $7 billion of tax base over 30 years. You'll get your full increment of debt service tax on that $7 billion that flow for you to use for bonds and debt service. That's where you get the rest of the money for the project, okay? Also, you get your base value, what the original value of the property was in that graph I showed you. You continue to get that year after year through the time of the zone. In addition, you get the difference between what you pledge to go into the zone. If you pledge 50%, you get 50% into your general fund. If you pledge 75%, you get 25% in your general fund, and so on. So it's really a balancing. You just look at talk to your FAs, talk to your staff, see what the proper balance is to make sure you have the mix you want of non-election, recourse bonds through the TIF, and then what you could get is additional bonding capacity off the debt service you're getting 100% of, and then what you want to come through other funds. And we'll work with you as a partner in the legislation sessions to try to get additional earmark funding, because this type of project affects the border region, and frankly, with what's happening now, we need to get statewide assistance to educate the kids that are coming here, because it's not just organic children growing from the community. A lot of folks are coming and relocating here that are trying to find a better place to live. So we need to address that issue collectively, and we'll work with you on that too.
Circling back to the MMD, you mentioned it's like a city.
Yes.
Can the MMD issue bonds and
question.
levy taxes to pay that financing?
Yeah, it can, yes. And the MMD would participate just like we're asking the district to. It would levy a tax like a city does, and it would put its tax into that fund to work with you on those bonds, just like a city could. And the county, by the way, we're asking the county to participate. So the county's money would go in to help pay for your bond also, and the other infrastructure as well, schools and infrastructure.
And if the district participates at 50%, what amount goes to the developer? Is it the other 70 million?
No, the developer won't get any of this money. When we do a district bond issuance and a TERS, 100% of what you put in goes to service the debt on your bonds. Not a penny of your tax revenue goes to even a blade of grass in a park or a inch of water pipe.
So reinvest.
It's 100% into your brick and mortar for your schools and facilities. And then in addition to that, we take some of the other taxes from the other entities and try to help you where we can on debt service for your facilities. So it's a partnership.
This partnership is a win-win, because the developer obviously is going to make money off the homes that
Sure.
are sold around the school. They're going to benefit greatly from this water source. They're going
Sure.
to build their community, and I'm happy for them. I'm just saying that, let's call it what it is, right?
Yeah.
And then the district, obviously, we would need to provide educational services, so that would benefit us as well. So it's definitely a partnership with both sides,
Yes.
gaining from.
How soon are you looking for USD's commitment to participating in this?
So the schedule right now is we filed our petitions to create the TERS and the PID. We've worked with Nathan at the city, the county, their attorney, and he's projected a date for the Commissioners Court to take action on creating the TERS and the PID on June the 12th. They're meeting on June the 12th. That may slide, but right now it's June the 12th. We're going to publish the notices for the public hearings and all that. Once their boards are created, they'll have to have a group of board members, June 12th, appointed to the TERS. If you want to participate by June the 12th, we'd like for you to pass a resolution indicating whether or not you feel like you're going to participate. It can be non-binding, but that resolution would also appoint someone from the district to be a representative on that board, because that board will finalize the finance plan, which would include the participation suggested for the district. Once that final finance plan is finished and done, it'll go back to the county in July for final approval. Once that approval, and you'll have full, obviously, involvement in this and knowledge on it. Once that final finance plan is approved sometime in July, then the board and the county will send interlocal agreements to the various tax entities, the MMD, the school district, and say, okay, this is where you actually confirm whether you're going to participate or not. And this is the terms, this is what you'll get out of the participation, this is what your participation will be. When you adopt that sometime in July, early August, that's when your participation becomes binding.
Okay.
So that's kind of how it works.
We're looking at our M&O, and we probably have to look at before our budget passes as well, and see
Yeah.
what kind of participation.
And really, this is money you don't get now, so it's not going to affect your current budget.
It's just looking into
It's
the
looking
future.
at future funds just from the development of this property that you get from the increment just from this property.
It sounds to me like this is going to happen, and it's happening already.
Yes.
So this is just a hypothetical question.
Yes.
If we did not enter into,
Yes.
what would happen?
So if you did not enter into it, what would normally happen is we would move forward with the project. We would still build the homes, still do everything, and we'd still dedicate the land to you. We can't build and operate schools. The only way we can do that is bring a charter in. I don't think anybody necessarily wants that.
Right.
So we can't operate schools, so we're going to have to ask you to still educate the kids and bus them or do something with them, and or if you build buildings, to figure out a way to pay for it,
Right.
because we don't have the power to educate them ourselves. We want to be in a partnership. We want to do everything possible to make it as easy and as efficient and successful to educate these children that we're bringing into the community to live here with their parents that we can. And the Walkers are very committed about that. That's why they're willing to dedicate the land. And
What you're presenting is a development plan, essentially.
yes, absolutely.
Planning
Long-range
for
planning,
schools and
everything,
parks, and all
comprehensive.
sorts of.
And so you understand that the Walkers, they're pledging as collateral every square inch of their land to secure your bonds, if we do it this way. Every square inch of their land is secured, your bonds are secured by their land.
You said the 13,000 acres? Or
Yeah,
you said-
13,000 acres.
I thought I heard earlier 100,000.
Well, they have
Collectively.
property in
Collectively.
Aguileras and
Oh,
other
okay.
places, yeah, this is where I'm talking
This is
about,
the
this,
third- the third-
in your district, the property in your district.
Okay.
They also are putting in, for the project, it's a public-private partnership, and they're putting in hundreds of millions of dollars of investment. Actually, more than that. Financing, they're putting in probably close to, over time, in 30 years, $1 billion of investment to build that $7 billion in tax base. It's a lot. It's a lot of investment, a lot of risk that they're taking on to build up the community. Do they profit from it? Yes, as they should. But it builds up your tax base and makes your district more.
So we all benefit from it.
You all benefit from
Right.
it, yeah.
I just wanted the public to see, the two sides of it.
Yes.
If we went forward with this, and if we didn't, this is still going to happen, and then what happens with different options.
Right.
Because ultimately, we answer to our constituency.
Yes, and one thing we're looking at possibly doing, we've got to talk to the county about how they feel about this, because ultimately they approved the plan, the finance plan for the TERS, and then the TERS board implements it. But there is a possibility to do housing affordability programs with the TERS. So we're looking at possibly putting some of the money, not your money, but some of the money from the development of the other tax entities into a fund that could give down payment assistance grants to critical employees in the community, that category would include teachers, educators. So for example, if a teacher wanted to live in this community, it would allow them like a $15,000 grant for down payment assistance to help buy a home, to be part of that community that they're educating in, and actually live there, have an affordable home, and have equity in it. And that helps give you a better security. Those kind of grants, for example, they have to work for the district for 5 years, they have to stay in the house for 5 years, that kind of thing. It helps bring stability to the retention of teachers and schools and everything. Yeah.
We would like that also right now.
Yes, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be comprehensive and think of all the things that are needed to make a successful community.
And the maintenance and operations that the district, the revenue from that the district gives up, does that impact the district's funding?
Good question.
State funding?
Good question. So The answer to that is a little bit complex, but let me try to go through it. As you know, the state funding for schools has changed dramatically throughout the last few years, many times, really. But what happens is, prior to 1999, if a school district participated in the TERS, the state would actually say, send us the agreement you entered into, and the state will take whatever money you give the TERS and give you that as an additional allotment out of state funding. Great. That means that your bonds will be paid for with that tax agreement, and the state would refund that to you. That's the perfect world, right? Okay. In 1999, that shifted a little bit, and then it shifted again in 2019. But in this session alone, so prior to 1999, that still happens. If you were a school district, like I did one with Southside Independent School District in San Antonio, they pledged 100% of their tax increment. It was before 1999. They give 100% every year to the TERS, Mission del Lago. They get 35% of it back in unrestricted funds as a donation, and the state refunds them 100% of that tax. Not bad. But in 1999, that changed, and so they're grandfathered, they're under the old law. Now, if you give money to the TERS out of your M&O, to the extent you do, it doesn't penalize you, but when they look at the district and they say, we're going to redistribute funds on the allocation system, they're going to assume you received that money when they do the reallocation analysis, okay? However, this session alone, all the bills that were shown dealing with finance and taxes, every one of those bills had that section in it that dealt with the exemptions. There's several of them. There's been a lot of special legislation to bring in TIFs back into the exemption. And what I'm recommending, and I think there's plenty of good reason for it, is that we add just a one-sentence amendment to that legislation that's on the books that says, if it was a zone created before June of 1999, or if it's a zone in a county adjoining the U.S.-Mexico border, it's exempt from the new rule, and you get the 100% reimbursement. I think we'd have plenty of sponsors for that. I think it'd be hard to argue against it, given what's happening in this region. Let's do it. I think there'll be a special session.
You could get it into the special session?
Yes, we could have done it. If we would have done, I wish we could have gotten started a little earlier. I think we could have talked to Steve Allison or some other folks sponsoring these bills, explained it to him. They're very smart people. They would have understood the need for it, and we probably could have gotten it. Can't guarantee it. We probably could have gotten it through Zaffarini, through King, through Richard Raymond.
But we still have time.
We still have time.
And
We have time every session to do it. And we have time in the special session to do it. So let's do it together as a partnership and bring that benefit to the community.
Yeah, anyway, I mean, it wouldn't affect us right now anyway,
No, it
because we're
wouldn't.
talking about the future.
Yeah, the first,
4 years.
yeah, we're talking 4 years off, so 2
Right.
sessions from now. So, we could even put a caveat in the agreement that if that didn't happen, you wouldn't have to continue to participate, something like that, or you reduce your participation level. That can all be negotiated, but I think it's a great opportunity to make a huge impact on your ability to fund schools and educate children with quality education in a way that makes a lot of sense.
We would still need to service the students out there.
You still would one way or the other, yeah, so this just helps you do it more effectively, and it doesn't put the burden on the existing taxpayers. It makes development pay for itself. All the taxes generated come from within that project only.
So this is coming. What are we going to do, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, y'all have hit a lot of the high points of the last couple slides, but let me just cover a couple things. Facility design and construction would commence in year 4. If we take it from here, it would be 2027. Elementary school 1 and bus facility, we understand our initial UISD needs. Total cost in today's dollars for both is about $65 million. We show here at different levels of support what that would support. And so at 50%, the initial needs would support $70 million, 75%, $105 million, 100%, $140 million. So that means the difference can be used to partially accelerate additional projects.
It's a surplus. The difference is a surplus.
It's a surplus. And cost reductions, we think, can be realized through change in delivery method because we can do different delivery methods, scope changes and alternative materials. Of course, your staff would be all engaged in that and would be engaged in the scoping of the projects. Funds can be used from other sources. If you want to add additional facilities or that type of thing, you can supplement from additional sources. And projects can also be deferred. If you say, you know, we want to just do this part because we think it may cost, this first one may cost too much, or that's just what we need, we can do that. We can defer those.
The other thing I'll mention why it's changing slides is that when you do TERS bonds, they're special revenue bonds, and so you can actually, or PID bonds, you can actually, let's say we issued a tranche of bonds for your schools in 2026, 2027, we can actually capitalize the principal and interest on those bonds for 3 years, possibly 4. So you continue to build up a surplus without paying anything into debt service and have a reserve fund before you start paying debt service. It makes the bonds more expensive, but you have a lot more security in the outcome of the issuance. You can actually change the dynamics that way. But your FA's inspector talked to you about that.
So our recommendation is to look at various ways to reduce costs, to provide progress reports on a quarterly basis, and that'll give us an opportunity to meet challenges and do fine-tuning, course corrections. And then UISD can consider funds from other sources to bridge differences. The water production is one way you could do that. We think that the direction needed is to instruct staff and consultants to work with Legacy Development and the Legacy Water Supply Corp. to complete and bring back a TERS PID agreement for your consideration with the various things we've talked about tonight. And this list has grown. We listed some more things, Ben, right, David?
Yes.
And that says April 2023. That would be a June, July timeframe. Yeah. So that's, David's ready to answer all kinds of questions now. That's the end of our prepared presentation. You did good.
Well, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them now if I can. If not, I'll get back to you on them.
I think I asked all my questions.
Okay.
That's good.
I think you guys have provided a lot of information. It's really informative, so I think we'll definitely discuss it.
I'm sure we'll have some more questions, once we further review it and discuss it and talk to our bond group. And
I think, David, we're willing to come back for another workshop or to meet with your staff to dig into these, that type of thing.
And we really enjoyed, let me just say, no matter what happens with all this, it's been a blessing and pleasure to work with your staff. You've got a great staff. And I want to thank you in closing. I want to thank you for your service on the board. I know it's a lot of time. I know it's a volunteer thing you do. Even though you're elected, you choose to run. It's very selfless, and I'm very grateful to you. And I'm sure I speak not just for myself, but all the parents of the community you educate. Thank you for your time and what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we'll move on to agenda item 6. We're going to go into closed session. The time is currently 7:33 p.m. in accordance with Texas Government Code sections 551.071 and 551.074. The board will discuss items 6A and 6B, and action will be taken in closed session. Back to open session. The board has reconvened in closed session. We are now in open session. Time is 8:32 p.m. For the record, no action was taken in closed session. Agenda item 7A, action regarding proposed renewal of classroom teachers' term contract, designation of board appointed contract to conduct non-renewal hearing, and authorization to superintendent to send notice of same to affect the employee.
Yes, board members, the recommendation on that item is to accept the superintendent's recommendation to propose the non-renewal of classroom teacher Gustavo Rojo Buendia's term contract of employment, to designate Jose Maldonado Jr. to conduct the non-renewal hearing, and to authorize the superintendent to send notice of same to the affected employee, Gustavo Rojo Buendia.
I make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? None opposed, motion passes. Agenda item 8, adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Adjourned. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you.